I've got several important things I'd like to go over here. It's 9:47 p.m. Monday, December 30th, 2019. One more day, and then the new year the next day. Anyway, let me start by saying this about the last video. I had mentioned a phrase referring to lordshipping. The reason why I worded it that way, I'll say what it was, but let me preface it by saying this. You always hear the term greasy gracers or greasy grace. I'm pretty tired of hearing that. I think everyone else is. Anyway, that's why I sort of thought of the term, whatever I had said. I used kind of a very forceful, some may think it's derogatory phrase, but like I say, referring to grace in those terms, it's sickening, it's revolting, making it God's grace seem so terrible and like you're preaching a false gospel. So I just said, I called it something like slimy, slippery snake, lordship salvation. You know, I mean, tired of greasy grace, so slippery snake on the other hand. And so I guess another quick thing to mention is there's many, whoever, they get insulted when they hear what they call bickering and division, divisiveness, and not being loving, sticking up for the gospel, and they can't tell the difference, or they just get upset because they don't like to hear things like that. They say with other brothers and sisters, but we go by the gospel. Are they brothers and sisters, or are they believing a false gospel? If they're not believing the true gospel of grace, yes, maybe they could be caught in legalism, listening to bad doctrine or what have you, or not schooled in the Bible verses, and maybe a new believer or whatever the case may be, but we're not going to make excuses for that, or not going to really put up with that, even though it may seem unloving by some, and saying you're just being mean, you're not, others, whoever may be sticking up for the gospel and having to expose people, not that they want to or like to, but just because they really have to. Then the other crowd's running loose, running rampant all over the place, infecting, I used a strong term there, infecting YouTube and doctrines and with what they're saying, their falsities and their lies. Again, just coming against grace, and you can't stand for that. You can't put up with that. You have to put the foot down no matter what. I mean, I get comments like, "Oh, I'm leaving here. I'm unsubscribing because you're being mean. You're being unloving." And I think it was unloving the way I read those verses from Jesus, but in the Bible there were exclamation marks. Jesus wasn't just being nicey nice. He was upset, he was angry, he was emotional when he was talking to the Pharisees, and I just quoted it that way. I'm sorry if you don't like it, that's just the way it is. That's how Jesus got, that's what he thought. When you talk about unloving, the other crowd, just has a field day. All kinds of demonic, evil, satanic things, mocking other believers, making fun of them, making jokes, putting faces on them, clown faces, and all kinds of evil. And some may say, well, just leave it alone. We're just supposed to just not pay them any attention. Yeah, in one sense that's true, but how can you not do that in a forum like this? You can't separate yourself. This is going on. You have to state and stick up for what's right, and defend the truth especially. And yes, defend others, defend other true believers who are getting beat on left and right, and really sick of it and weary of it. All of us are. And when they're not openly belligerent, they take the other tactic and try to appear so nice and loving in their words and their video descriptions and their photos. And then others have a hard time discerning or wanting to accept that those who believe a false gospel, even though they may even be friends with them, or they may get along very well, be mutually, show love toward another true believer, But the bottom line is, what do they believe? That's the bottom line. I've said this over and over in the past. That's the bottom line, not any of this other stuff. You know, it's like, well, they're so kind, they're so loving, but even other grace people don't show the same love that they do, you know, trying to compare. Well, this isn't some kind of popularity contest where who seems so nice, you know, so you can't believe anything adverse toward them, even though, well, they sort of don't believe the right gospel, but they're trying, you know. No, they're not trying, they're opposing. So please don't be taken in by that. Or, you know, watch some other channel for whatever reasons, for how they may seem so wise, or their appearance, you know, whatever, their popularity, the fact that they seem to be so gung-ho on the rapture and having dreams left and right and so-called, you know, whatever, signs. So that seems to sort of schmooze it over, like, you know, well, you know, they're believers, they believe in the rapture, they're telling us that, and they're gung-ho, and they believe in God, but yet they believe a false gospel. So we can't put credence just in how much someone seems to know, how nice they are to others, or the signs they claim they're having constantly. And especially, as I say, if they're believing a wrong gospel, a false gospel, and opposing the true grace gospel, then you really don't need much more to tell you anything. You got your answer right there, and some don't want to accept that. It's not the grace believers causing the problem, causing the division, by standing up for the truth and exposing, yes, those who need to be exposed, and staving off the wolves. I'll try to close here by saying what maybe I should have said at the start of this, is that I had talked about probably leaving, getting out of YouTube the 1st of January. I'm not going to do that. I think there needs to be those outspoken and stand up for grace right now. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of others getting beat on. Plus some very recent developments with some larger grace channels here that those who listen to me and others in the same circles know who they are. One's channel is gone completely. He's no longer on for various personal reasons. You know, also could be health reasons, and sort of needing to, I should say, take a back seat to the struggle of fighting for and contending for the faith. And there's different seasons for everything. There's different needs and situations of other believers, I guess you could say, to make up for what might be lacking due to these developments. Plus, we don't know what any repercussions might or might not be as far as censorship or channels possibly be taken down or what have you. Plus, I guess I definitely should mention that whatever point things are at prophetically. So I guess I'll try to remain on here as long as I feel up to the call. And if others don't feel that way in some capacity or at all, then that's okay. That's their decision. And whatever role you play, if at all, or large or small, just do what you can to the best of your ability if you feel you should. Whether you're popular or not, or whether you're on some list or not, but just to be gracious to all and try to understand and put yourself in their place with the capacity of knowledge that you might have of them, because we don't fully grasp what might be going on within someone fully, and possibly jump to certain conclusions, whether it's their personal situation or some decision or path that they desire or choose to take. Now I realize I did a lot of lecturing this last minute here, but that's about it for now. And again, just stick to what the true gospel is and you'll be okay. That's the criteria. That's the measuring rod of everything. All else is peripheral, and I would say diversional to the main spiritual focus. This verse came to my mind at this last second, popped into my head, whether I quote it accurately or not. But it says that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord will raise up a standard against him. I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe not exactly. And so if you see the demonic opposition to grace, that's okay. Just stay in peace. And this message isn't going to be preached very much longer. And it seems like all the thorns and thistles of legalism, self-righteousness, are trying to choke off the vine. I should say the roots. So just keep speaking the truth and let the chips fall where they will. Easier said than done. But this situation isn't going to last very much longer. And the respect for grace will come to a full circle in the end, whenever that is. And unfortunately, those who oppose it are going to get their just rewards. And they might think they have the upper hand right now, trying to extinguish and quelch the grace message, thinking they're doing God's work. They're doing the enemy's work. And they're the tares, and it's obvious who they are. At least it should be to all of us. Well, let me repeat that for a second, because I didn't know if the tape was rolling here. Again, that they're the tares, and it's obvious to all of us who they are. At least it should be. That there's going to come a time when we won't have to listen to any of these lies any longer, and the opposition and the persecution by those opposing themselves, opposing their own salvation, who are caught in the snare of the wicked one, who have a zeal for righteousness, but their own self-righteousness, not of knowledge, not of the knowledge of the truth to save someone, but in the saving of themselves, based not upon the grace of God alone, to save them to the uttermost, by the simple acknowledgement of the true gospel message.